Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to lecture number 6 of this course, Philosophy of Architecture. The title of today's lecture is Aesthetic Principles of Architecture. And in today's lecture, we would cover 6 aesthetic principles of Vitruvius. We would also see how Vitruvian goals have shifted from towards expressivist conception of architecture. So, shift from Vitruvian goals like 6 aesthetic principles. So, these are also the goals. So, how architecture has shifted from Vitruvian goals to expressivist conception of architecture. And then we would see how the philosopher Christian Wolff spoke about architecture, what did he say and what did he speak about architects' intentions. But before we get to these topics, you might recollect that in the previous lecture, we were discussing essence of technology. We would complete that discussion and then move to these points. So, let us do a summary. In the previous lecture, we were discussing the essay written by the philosopher Martin Heidegger, the essay Question Concerning Technology. And in this essay, Martin Heidegger deals with the essence of technology. We were discussing that technology is actually revealing of the totality of beings, which means that all the beings that come under technology, technology brings them together and the totality of them, not individually, but the totality of all the beings that come under a specific technology, it reveals the possibility. And we were also discussing that technology has become so pervasive and so fundamental that we do not really have a choice to opt for it or opt out of it. It is just there and we have to take it and deal with it. We also discussed that technology reveals the totality of beings in one way, and it is possible that because it is so overwhelming and so pervasive, it can overwhelm all other ways of revealing the totality of beings or revealing beings itself. So, therefore, Martin Heidegger says that there is a danger in it because it overwhelms all other ways of revealing, all other ways of living life. And this all other ways other than technology could be art, could be spirituality, could be religion, could be anything, but because of the pervasive nature of technology, it can overwhelm all other ways of revealing. What we also discussed was that technological framework is essentially expansionist, which means right now it covers say x number of things, tomorrow it will cover 2x number of things, and to reveal the possibilities of these things, it can do so only by reduction. So, it reduces the things that it covers and then it reveals their possibility. So, what we are saying is that essentially technology is reductionist. We also discussed that it encloses all beings and all beings that come under it, and the term that is used by Heidegger is enframing, and it enframes with the objective of making all beings utterly available and utterly manipulable. So, manipulability, available to manipulate and utterly available for complete manipulation. So, that is what technology is all about, and it reduces man and beings to the status of standing reserve, which means man and the beings means things, and things living and non-living, which are at the disposal of technology, they are all reduced to the status of standing reserve. Standing reserve means they are ready to be used, and used for what purpose? For technological purposes. So, this is where we were in the previous lecture, that technology reduces man and beings to the status of standing reserve, available on call for technological purposes. And it must also not be forgotten that this utter availability and utter manipulability is for technological purposes in a reductory sense. Let us move forward, and then so as we have said that technology essentially is means to an end. So, technology is instrumental, it acts as an instrument to achieve certain ends, but there is an underlying science behind that instrumentality, and that is causality, which means X causes Y, and that cause is scientific, that cause is related, X causes Y, Y causes Z, so X causes Z. So, this kind of layering of causes is something that technology hides within its fold, and to understand essence of technology, we must understand various forms of causes, various types of causes that come together to create a being, create a new entity, create a new maybe software. So, for this Heidegger goes back to the early philosopher Aristotle, who talked about 4 causes, 4 primal causes, and he gave these causes as causa materialis, causa formalis, causa finalis and causa efficia. What do these mean? And here Heidegger explains these 4 causes with the help of the example of silver chalice. Silver chalice, you can see a picture of it on this slide. This chalice is used generally in Christian churches, and it is a container, it is a cup in which as the story goes, the blood of Christ was collected when he was being crucified. It is, you will see this in every church nowadays in use. Now, when we think of causa materialis, what is causa materialis? In this case, silver and gold. So, these two are the material which are being used to create this silver chalice. Now, this material is just material, but these material have come together in a certain way, so that it intends towards, it is destined towards becoming a chalice. So, it is not just silver and gold in an isolated sense, they come together to become chalice. And then you have causa formalis. So, this silver and gold is coming together, of course, they are material, and this material forms the chalice, but still the chalice needs to be formed in a certain way. So, that form, that particular form and not something else. So, this silver and gold is not coming together to become a bangle, not coming together to become a necklace. It has come together to become a chalice, and chalice which is of this nature and which serves a certain purpose. So, this form, giving of this form, the kind of instruments that are used to give this silver and gold this form, is a part of a cause that leads to the formation of chalice. Finally, causa finalis. Now, what is causa finalis? It means that chalice will be used for a certain purpose. Now, chalice is not used at home to have ice cream. It is used for a sacred purpose in a church. So, it has to be created in such a way that it is appropriate to be used as chalice in a church for the sacred, as a part of the sacred ritual. So, that final form, that final objective for which chalice is formed has to be given, has to be a part of this process of, or the technology of making this chalice. So, finalis also is something like purpose or telos as it is called in Greek. You may have heard of teleological objective. So, finally, what is it being used for? And chalice is used for a sacred ritual in a church. So, the technology that is used to give it that form so that it can be used as a chalice in a church is something that can be called technology. And finally, as per Aristotle, the term is causa efficia, the final cause. Causa efficia is how all of this comes together, causa, material, form and final objective, how all this will come together efficiently so that this form actually takes place, actually happens, and then it is used in a particular way in a church. So, how does it happen? It happens, one, of course, the agency is the silversmith or the goldsmith, the artist who has made this. So, he has kept in mind the material, the form, the ultimate objective, and brought all of it together in a way so that chalice is created and used for the purpose for it was conceived of, it was created. So, what Heidegger is saying, that this whole process, this whole all the components of making this chalice is nothing but something like bringing forth, something like blossoming into a bloom. So, material of silver and gold is coming together and it is blooming into the form of a chalice. It is as if something is arising out of itself to become a chalice, and it is arising out of itself in what way? It is something like blossoming of a flower. Of course, you have the agencies of or agency of an artist working on it, but he only facilitates this blooming, and therefore, what he says is that this bringing forth, this eruption of blossoming into a bloom from this material, from this form and this from the final purpose is something which is called poiesis, and that poiesis indicates towards the essence of technology. In Greece, they also said that this poiesis, this bringing forth is something similar to moving from concealment to unconcealment. So, that which is concealed. So, perhaps this form of chalice was concealed in a block of silver and gold, and that has been made to unconceal, or that has been revealed by chipping and by working on it and revealing the form of a chalice. So, a technology has been used to technology as a way of revealing, as a way of bringing forth this form of chalice from a block of the material. So, in Greece there is also a term, and the term is aletheia. Aletheia means unconcealment, aletheia means bringing forth, aletheia means revealing that which is hidden. There is another term called veritas. Veritas is that which is true. So, you are revealing that which is true. So, this is how technology moves forward in terms of its essence. Now, if we go further and try to explore what else can be said about the essence of technology, Heidegger says that there is a certain objectlessness about this standing reserve. So, even though technology unconceals or reveals the totality of beings in a one particular way, but that and it reveals and it orders everything as a standing reserve, makes it available for manipulation. But there is also something like objectlessness, means they are standing reserve for what, and there is no real purpose for which they have become the standing reserve. So, this objectlessness is something in which the objects that have been arranged, that have been brought together, this objectlessness is the thing into which these objects disappear. So, the standing reserve, while as a standing reserve there are many objects, but they remain there without any objective, they just remain there and become objectiveless. And then Heidegger talks about enframing, which is of course gathering together and setting upon, that sets upon man and challenges him forth to reveal the actual in the mode of ordering as standing reserve and blocks poiesis as destiny. So, what he is saying is that while gathering together happens and it in that gathering together he reveals the actual. So, all that is gathered together, the actual is revealed, but it is not just revealed, it is ordered. So, even though there is an objectlessness, but still there is an ordering. So, all the things that are there are being ordered in a certain way, and that ordering is so rigid and ordering as reserve, ordering of actual as standing reserve, ordering of standing reserve, so that they are always available and they are always available to be manipulated. What happens is this ordering prevents the poiesis from happening, and when we say prevents poiesis from happening, means it prevents the blossoming, it prevents them from coming together and blossoming in multiple forms. What happens is it is destined. So, there is a direction that the manipulation gives to this standing reserve, and that direction only becomes important. All other forms of revealing get blocked. So, causality shrinks into simultaneous and sequential reporting of standing. So, everything is available as a standing reserve, and what happens is instead of causality, instead of things available as a standing reserve, instead of them interacting with each other, what happens is causality becomes simple reporting or sequential reporting of all that is there as standing reserve and how they may be made to interact and manipulate, so that certain results can be effected. So, causality shrinks into simultaneous and sequential reporting of standing reserve. Human activity and human achievement cannot prevent or banish this exclusive ordering of the actual. So, what Heidegger is saying, that no matter what kind of activity we do or achievement we boast of, it becomes very difficult to banish this ordering. The way technology orders the actual in reality and makes them available as standing reserve or makes them available as an utterly manipulable substances, no amount, no kind of human activity and achievement can prevent or stop this exclusive ordering. Only one thing can prevent this exclusive ordering of the actual, and that is human reflection. So, that is why Heidegger talks about human reflection, human wonder, capacity to wonder, capacity to set aside the certainties of common sense and indulge or engage into reflection, into thinking, which can only prevent this technology from making everything as standing reserve and making everything as utterly available and manipulable. And then he finally talks about poiesis of fine arts. So, he says that in Greek poiesis, fine arts of poiesis, poiesis of fine arts, which is revealing of fine arts, was also called techne. So, techne is the word which was used in the Greek civilization even for fine art. So, someone is creating a drawing, someone is creating a sculpture, someone is doing stonemason, someone is doing dance or singing. All of that was something similar to eruption or blossoming into bloom or poiesis or bringing forth art into reality, and that was also called techne, from which the word technology has come. And then finally, he says that poetically man dwells on earth. So, when man dwells, man lives on earth, he can do poetically. So, therefore, and where does man live? Man lives in a building, in a built structure. So, what he is saying is indirectly that the dwelling of man on earth can be poetic, and that can also be technology. So, technology helps in making man dwell, and if architecture can grasp that technology, it can make man dwell on earth poetically. So, this is what I wanted to say on the essence of technology as Heidegger has explained in his essay Question Concerning Technology, and this is how he connects technology and the essence of technology to the architecture discipline. He also wrote later on an essay called Building, Dwelling and Thinking, where he establishes a more direct connection between dwelling and architecture. So, we will look at that essay also as we progress in this course. Let us now move forward to the title of today's lecture 6, Aesthetic Principles of Architecture. In this lecture, we will see the shift from Vitruvian goals to expressivist conception of architecture. So, all of us remember that there was this architect called Marcus Vitruvius Pollio, and he lived in the 1st century AD, and he was a renowned architect, and he advised Caesar on how public buildings must be constructed, so that these buildings reflect the value system of Caesar's empire. Now, if you remember, there was also something called Vitruvian triad, and it talked about 3 pillars or 3 cornerstones of Western architecture, which was beauty, utility and durability. Durability is also called strength or firmitas, if you remember the older slides. So, beauty, utility and durability or strength. You know that Vitruvian architecture is about siting, design, construction of public buildings, and if you distill the 10 books of architecture that Vitruvius wrote, the distillation will yield to us 6 basic principles of architecture, and these 6 basic principles are order, arrangement, eurythmy, symmetry, propriety and economy. And these 6 principles, if you see little more closely and if you categorize them, you will see that they can actually be arranged under these 2 of the triad, beauty and durability, which means order, eurythmy and symmetry will go towards beauty, and arrangement, propriety and economy goes towards durability. Economy ensures durability at minimum cost, so it is efficiency, and it is obvious, and we are not talking about utility, because all of them together will form the building to be utilitarian. Now, when we are talking of shift in architecture from Vitruvian goals of beauty and utility to the expressivist conception of communicating abstract ideas. So, when we say expressivist conception, it means that a building or the architecture or architectural object, as we have decided in the past lectures, that architectural object can communicate abstract ideas, and that is what is meant by the term expressivist conception. If you look at the picture on this slide, this is picture of Kartavya Path, or which was earlier called Rajpath in New Delhi, and how the Kartavya Path is being changed by, of course, having new parliament and then new buildings that would dot the either side of Kartavya Path, and north and south block, which are going to become museums. So, it is actually communicating an idea that the country is growing, it is developing, it is becoming a modern country, and therefore, the buildings which were actually offices earlier are now becoming museums. So, abstract ideas can be communicated, and how it can be communicated is what architecture has been developing to. So, Vitruvian goals of beauty and utility has given way to expressivist conception of architecture. Now, to give an example or to explain expressivist conception of architecture, I have chosen one building and I will explain that with the example of that building. And that building is Mill Owners Building in Ahmedabad, or it is also the headquarters of Ahmedabad Textile Mill Owners Association. Often this building is also called Atma Building, ATMA, Ahmedabad Textile Mill Owners Association Building. This building was designed by Le Corbusier in 1954, and you can see the building. You can easily see that it has all the characteristics of Le Corbusier building. It is raw cement, and its surface is completely unadorned. It has no paint, it has no plaster, it is pure raw cement. It also has something called brise soleil. Brise soleil means that the window, the walls in front are actually on a slant. So, brise soleil means the sun breakers, as we have said earlier. So, these sun breakers prevent sunlight from entering the building directly, so that the inside of the building remains cool and shielded from, and you know Ahmedabad is it can get very hot during summers. So, it prevents that sunlight from entering the building and it keeps it cool, but it does not prevent the wind from entering. So, that way it gives the building a fairly airy feel. Now, what kind of ideas this building is communicating is something that we must think about. So, expressivist conception of architecture and communication or communicating abstract ideas. In this building, what Corbusier has tried to achieve is combine public and private. How the ideas of public and private can be combined and communicated through one building, and not only public and private, also masculine and feminine. As I have said that this is a mill owners building or headquarters of Textile Mill Owners Association. Now, these textile mills in Ahmedabad were actually owned by private entrepreneurs, mostly Jain entrepreneurs, and you can see that because it is an association of mill owners, it is all private interests that are coming together here in this building as its headquarters. However, a large number of public works were also being done, since it was an association. So, many philanthropic work was carried out from here. Then several freedom fighters were also later on brought here, and they inspired various generations with their stories and stories of their valor and stories of their sacrifice and so on. So, this building played a significant role, not so much in the freedom struggle, but subsequent to freedom struggle in the growth of modern India, particularly business owners. So, even though the interests are private, but the functions are public. So, how this idea of public and private can be brought together in one building and communicated through its structure. Second part, masculine and feminine, how a combination of that can be achieved and communicated through this building. On the historical plane, in times of communal preoccupation, architecture has the floor. So, what Corbusier is saying, and he is emphasizing the importance of architectural objects in the realm of history. So, when he says that when communities are coming together as historical forces. So, for example, in Indian freedom struggle, Gandhiji marshaled large number of people into non-violent struggle. So, large number of people came together to fight for the country. Many business owners also came together to contribute to towards freedom struggle and so on. So, what Le Corbusier is saying, that on the historical plane, on the platform of history, when people are seized with, or people are thinking of having communal objectives, communal in the sense community object, together we will achieve this, together we will achieve independence for the country, together we will achieve a creation of a community or prosperity and so on. So, in such a scenario, architecture can play a role, and architecture has the floor, architecture is well poised to play a role, and this building has played that role immediately after India's independence, a role where it brought people together to create a more prosperous future. Architecture as an event without the need for sculpture or painting, and yet listen to what they have to say. So, what Le Corbusier is saying, that architecture does not need sculpture or painting. In fact, I must tell you that when you enter this building, the kind of feeling you have is that it is not really a building, it is a sculpture. It is a giant sculpture in which you can actually live and do your work. It is also something like a painting, because it has multiple components which are fairly artistic and which are at one sense masculine, in another sense feminine, which we will see in the next slide. So, but what Corbusier is saying is that architecture does not really require sculpture or painting, but what it does is it listens to them very carefully. What are the strengths of sculpture, or what are the strengths of painting as an art form, and can architecture incorporate their strengths into itself so that it enriches itself, and therefore, architecture becomes a dwelling place, and dwelling place not just as a shelter for individual, but it becomes a dwelling place for civic institutions, intellectual institutions, mystical organizations and so on. That is what this building has done. It is a shelter, it is a dwelling place for intellectual organization, for commercial organization, and it has also become a civic institution. So, this is the purpose, or these are the abstract ideas this building has served through its structure and through the activities that has happened inside this building. Little more a closer look of this building. So, Le Corbusier wrote a book called Une Maison, un Palais. You can look at the first point in this slide, and this book was written in 1928. Une Maison, un Palais. Une Maison means a house, and un Palais means one palace. So, this building, Atma building or mill owners building, whichever way we call it, it was inspired by the ideas in this book, and he says biology of the house was inspired by this book. So, it is biological. You can see I have particularly chosen these two pictures of the building, and in these two pictures you can see on the left hand side it is a straight line, it is conical, whereas on the right side it is round, it is womb like. So, on one hand it is masculine, it is angular, it is straight, it is hard, whereas inside it is round, it is soft. So, in this way he managed to combine the masculine and the feminine. You can see in the second point, the angular and harsh lobby is softly enclosed by the curvaceous and round auditorium. So, the facade is masculine, whereas inside is feminine. Then you can see that it has a lattice facade, and lattice facade, through the lattice facade you have foliage peeping out and it gives relief. So, you can see the plants that are coming out of the lattice facade, and it makes you feel little nice and green and closer to nature and so on. So, that is again a combination of that which is hard and that which is soft. Then I also spoke about brise soleil, which is sun breakers, and it keeps the building cool. and then it has a round bench. So, as you enter the building, I will show you a picture of that. As we enter the building, just as you enter, you will see there is a round bench, and that round bench, it is made out of stone, and it almost like it blocks your way, you cannot move forward, and it is almost at the edge. So, once you cross that, you end the building. And then there is a very large red door. So, when there is a ramp, as you have seen this ramp. So, as you go up through this ramp, you will hit a red door, and that red door is a massive red door, and it is against a mechanical setting on a standalone frame. So, it gives that sense of drama to the building. You can see in this picture also that there is a red door which is turned around, and you can only see a hint. I will show you another picture where you can see it fully. So, there is a red door which gives drama to this building. And then I have said a womb like auditorium that has curved ceilings and wood panelled curved walls, which gives you the sense of a womb that is there inside a woman. And then you have seen that rounded piers lift the building by a floor. So, rounded piers lift the building by a floor, and slanted walls on the ground floor prevent the need or obviates the need for a gate or a door. Now, let us take a look. You can see in the right hand picture, there are slanting walls. So, these slanting walls, I mean, when you come to the building, closer to the building, you will see that these are just passages. You can just easily enter. There is no need for a door to be opened or closed and so on. And in fact, it makes it very easy. It is inviting that you can straight away come in. Then you have also seen that this is the style of Le Corbusier, that he lifts the whole building up by a floor, and he puts the entire weight of the building on some pillars. So, that is what he has done with this building also, that the whole building is lifted up by a floor, and it actually starts from the first floor. And to reach the first floor, you have a ramp. You do not really need a lift, it is a beautiful ramp, and so on. And then you have the staircases and all. When you go up the ramp, you hit this red door, and you can see this red door. It is a massive red door which is immediately after the ramp, and you can see the red frame and the red door. It adds to the drama and the color to this building which is otherwise very raw and grey. And then I was talking about that stone bench, round stone bench. On the left hand side, you can see a picture of that stone bench. So, interestingly, in this building, these opposite ideas of masculine, feminine, public, private, they do not fuse into each other, they do not become one. What happens is, they stand side by side, maintaining their separateness, and yet announce that they are incomplete without the other. So, Le Corbusier might have observed in Indian society that men and women in public places, they do not sit side by side, they are just there. There is a separate, if you go by public transport, there are separate seats for men, separate seats for women, and so on. Even the public places, they sit separately, there are separate different lines for men, different lines for women, and so on. So, that must have inspired him, and he has kept masculine and feminine stand side by side and not fuse them together. There is it is also symbolic front and utilitarian back. So, if you see the back of the building, it is very utilitarian. There are office rooms, and there is an auditorium, and there is a place for exhibition and things like that. So, very utilitarian. Whereas, front you can see there is brise soleil, and there is the lattice facade, and so on. So, it stands for something. And then tumults can be disciplined by color, lyrical space can be created, classification realized, dimensions enlarged. So, all of this can be done through color and through space, lyrical space, which means a musical space. So, when you combine masculine and feminine, something like lyrics can be created and dimensions. So, what Le Corbusier does, he creates an exalted harmony between masculine, feminine, the contrasting ideas, and he does it through the ideas of architecture, through the built structure of architecture. Now, we come to the philosopher Christian Wolff. Today, we will deal with his ideas in relation to architecture. So, Christian Wolff lived in the period 1679 and 1754, and he lived just before Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant, of course, we all know is one of the greatest philosophers of mankind, but he preceded Immanuel Kant, and he in some sense also influenced thinking of Immanuel Kant. So, he was before Kant the chief voice of German enlightenment. He was a professor of mathematics. Interestingly, he was a professor of mathematics and natural philosophy. Natural philosophy today will be called perhaps physics and maybe biology and astronomy. So, these are the subjects that were contained in the old subject of that was called natural philosophy. He was also professor of mathematics. He authored a book called Rational Thoughts on God, the World and the Soul of Man. So, this kind of work he did in his life, and when he was explaining in his book the ideas related to God, world and soul of man, he gave examples from architecture. According to him, architecture is a science for constructing a building so that it is in complete correspondence with architect's intentions. So, what he said is that architecture as a subject is actually a science, and science which gives you rules, which gives you theories to tell us how to construct a building, so that architect is able to realize his intentions. What architect thought that he will do or he will create, he is able to do exactly that. So, his intentions actually get realized with the help of science of architecture or the theories of architecture. So, this is what Christian Wolff said, that architecture is a science for constructing a building so that it is in complete correspondence with architect's intentions. And then he said that principles of architecture are rooted in mathematics. So, and he wrote mathematics, he wrote a treatise on mathematics, and he said that all the principles that he is giving which are related to architecture are or can be derived from mathematics. And then he said perfection or harmony is located in the correspondence between intentions and building that results from his plan and supervision. So, what he is saying is that architect has certain intentions and he constructs a building, and so there is his intention and there is a building which he is able to construct. But what connects the two? A building that is created, that is built, and intention which he has thought in the beginning that this is what I want to do. Both of them are related or both of them are connected through the plan that he makes and the supervision that he does while that plan is executed. So, in his plan and in his execution, in the supervision of the execution, this correspondence is realized, and through this correspondence perfection and harmony is achieved. So, this is what Christian Wolff said about architecture. His contribution is also in terms of creating different designs for columns, and I have given you 5 types of columns, and these columns were actually the contribution of Christian Wolff. You can see the names of these columns: Tuscan, you can see it is a simple kind of design, and then Doric, and then Ionic, Corinthian and Composite. So, these are 5. If you go to any classical building, you will see that pillars will be any one of these styles, and often you will see that architects do talk about these columns or these options that they have when they are designing columns. So, Tuscan, Doric, Ionic, Corinthian and composite. This is the contribution of Christian concrete design related contribution to architecture by Christian Wolff. So, Christian Wolff also made this famous statement, form is a theatrical event of a certain length. Form is a theatrical event of a certain length and the length itself may be unpredictable. So, what he is saying is that architecture can be an event, and event, when we say architecture is an event, it means the building is an event. Building can be an event, architectural object can be an event, the form of it can be an event, and how long is that event is unpredictable. It depends on the architect to decide what kind of event he wants to create through his building. So, what he said is building is a space that is enclosed by art. So, to create an event you need to have an artistic element, an element of surprise, element of aesthetics, element of drama, and therefore, you need art. So, he says that building is a space that is enclosed by art, and building is comfortable if all necessary functions can happen without hindrance and vexation. So, building, obviously we use building for certain purpose. If it is a house, we use it for living, for dwelling, for doing our daily activities. If it is some other structure, if it is a public place, then it is for offices. If it is a bridge, then it is for crossing and so on. So, the building is comfortable if all that is to be done in that building happens without much hindrance and without vexation or irritation. He also said that beauty is perfection or appearance of perfection. So, he says that a building is beautiful if either it is perfect or at least it appears to be perfect. So, that is where that is how he defines the word beauty, perfection or appearance of perfection in the context of architecture. And then he went so far into the detail, and he said, he talked about the sizing of windows. So, he said that the size of the window should be so decided that it brings illumination to the house, so that by allowing sunlight inside and therefore, it encourages it makes sure that the house is illuminated, it has sunlight and so on. He also said that windows are for human pleasure, and when he says human pleasure, it means that people who live in the house can see outside, can see the scenery out and exult in it by enjoying the scenery and yet remaining inside the confines, the safety of the house. Window is also an instrument through which people outside can see inside and people inside can see outside. So, Christian Wolff was one of the few philosophers who had interest in architecture, who spoke about windows and its role in creating the building and its role in bringing pleasure and happiness to people living in the building. He also spoke about location of staircases. So, in a building, where should the staircase be located, so that the proper circulation of people can happen. So, people can easily go up and come down and without much disturbance to the rest and without creating an ugly scene on the platform of the house. So, location of staircases is also something that he spoke about, and then he spoke about privies. Privies means private spaces or bathrooms and where we do personal activities. So, he spoke about the privy areas, the private areas where which must have ventilation and it is designed in such a way that the seat can remain clean. So, he spoke about privies, the private spaces that are located inside the house. So, this is where we are, Christian Wolff and his contribution to architecture. So, I will make a summary of what we have done today. We started with essence of technology, and we dealt with the essay written by Heidegger on essence of technology, and we said that essence of technology is nothing but ordering of the actual of all beings, so that they are made utterly available and utterly manipulable. So, all beings are available all the time, and they can be manipulated, they can be used for technological purposes. And we also spoke of how technology overwhelms all other forms of revealing. So, while technology is one form of revealing, but it is so prevalent and it is so overwhelming that it prevents all other forms of revealing from happening, and that is why there is a danger in using technology, because it makes sure that mankind moves in only one direction and all other directions, all other openings are blocked. And he also said that essence of technology is similar to the essence of fine arts. In fine arts, there is a blossoming, there is a bringing forth and blossoming of truth, bringing truth from concealment to unconcealment. So, something similar is also the essence of technology. However, it must be not overwhelming, and he also connected it to architecture by talking about how a man dwells on earth, and man's dwelling is also a kind of poetry which can be related to technology. And then we talked about a shift from Vitruvian architecture to expressivist conception of architecture, where we saw the example of Le Corbusier, and we saw the Le Corbusier's work of mill owners building, which is located in Ahmedabad. And then we went through the details of this building, where we saw that the masculine front and feminine back is how they are brought together to create a structure which reflects the reality of society, where man and woman, they do not fuse into each other, but they stand side by side, maintaining their separateness, and yet announce that they are incomplete without the other. So, in this building, it is seen that even though they are separate, they come together to form, to construct this building, and it is beautifully exemplified by the red color door, by the round stone bench, and by this womb like auditorium, which is right at the back of the building. And then we saw Christian Wolff and his contribution to architecture, and particularly when he said that mathematics has a great role to play in deciding principles of architecture, and it is mathematics and the theories and formula that comes from mathematics that go into creating a science of architecture, which ensures that there is a complete correspondence between architect's intentions and the building that he is able to make finally, and that correspondence is because of this scientific approach to making the building. And then we also saw the 5 canonical order of columns, which were contribution of Christian Wolff, and then we saw that how Christian Wolff talked of building as a theatrical event. Okay. And when we say theatrical event, we say that it is when we walk around the city and we come across a beautiful building, it is actually an event. And what kind of event this building would be, or what kind of event any city is, and that nature of the event can be decided, can be constructed by the architect who is the designer of this whole building or the whole city. So, in the context of Le Corbusier, he designed the city itself, city of Chandigarh, and you might wonder, or you might conjecture that Corbusier, by designing the city of Chandigarh, he was sending a message to the government of France, the French government, that see what I have done in Chandigarh, something that I have done here, but you did not allow me to do it in France, which is my home country. So, the idea that the building can be an event, the city can be an event, and that event can be enjoyed, that event can be theatrical, dramatic, and it is the architect who has in his hands what kind of event he wants to create. This idea emerged for the first time from this philosopher Christian Wolff. So, this is what we had to cover in today's lecture. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have seen the initiation of architecture into classical philosophy. Christian Wolff is a classical philosopher from Enlightenment age, and gradually as we move forward, we will see more philosophers' contribution to the field of architecture. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the lecture.